Guys, welcome back to another tutorial, and today I want to show you guys how to build a line chart in Qlik. So we're going to look at sales trends over time. So first what I'm going to do is get my layout container. You'll see why, but essentially I need this layout container in order to help with using buttons. The second thing I'm going to add, still on the left hand pane here, is I'm going to add the actual line chart to my container. Okay, right, so dimension. So I'll probably explained this to before, but dimensioning is essentially how we want to view our data. So for me, I want to look at sales trends every single month. What do I want to see? Well, I want to see my sales. So the first thing that I want to see over time is my average sales each month. Okay, so I'm going to go to total revenue here, and I'm going to use the average total revenue aggregation. Cool. So we can see here what my revenue is per month. But now what I want to do is compare my average revenue per month to specific products. So in order to do this, I'm actually going to need to use some set analysis. So if I go into the top right hand corner, my right hand pane here, I click on line chart, edit properties, I go to data here, and you can see here that you've got your dimension, and you could also add another dimension. And I've also here got my measure, which is what you can see here is my trend over time. These are my average sales. But now I want to look at what my total sales are per month for specific products. So the way that we do this is we're going to go to add here, and I'm going to open up the measure expression. Okay, so now I want to look at my sales per month for a specific products. So I've already pre-made some expressions here, but essentially this is my electronics category of products. So essentially what this is here, we're using set analysis, and you can think of set analysis as filtering within Excel, or is similar to you using the where clause if you're using SQL. So what this is saying is, within the product category field, I want you to filter all the data, give me only the products which are in the electronics category, then I want you to add up my revenue, okay? And if we click apply, there you see. So we can see straight away that this is my average sales. This is my average sales per month essentially, and what you can see here is that my electronic sales are exceeding the average sales that we have per month. So we can see that this category of products, electronics, is selling really, really well. But what about maybe something like, I don't know, our sports products? How do they compare as well? So what we can do, once again, what I'm actually going to do is copy this expression, and I'm going to add another expression. And essentially this time what I'm going to do here, so all I'm doing here is using exactly the same set analysis. So I want you to filter the data by product category, but this time I'm going to change the category from electronic products to sports products. And there you go. So you can see here, once again, that this is our average sales per month. We can see here that our electronic products per month, our total sales, are well above the average, and we can also see that our sports products do quite well too. So let's tidy this up and make things a lot easier for you to understand. So these are electronic products, so let's give this a label. Let's call it electronic sales. Good. And then if we go to our sports sales, and that's a lot easier and that should make it a lot easier for the reader to interpret as well, we probably should change the label as well of our average sales per month to make that nice and clear. Good. On the bottom there, I personally, let's tie this chart up. I don't like to have labels and legends, so I'm going to change this to labels and titles. Sorry. So I'm just going to change this to labels only on the x-axis, and we'll do the same for the y-axis. Excellent, and that's a lot clearer to understand. So now we can see exactly what month it is. We can see here our revenue in sales, and we can have the legend on the right hand side showing exactly each category. But there's probably one thing missing here, is that this needs a title, of course. So we're going to call this our sales trend. Let's call it sales trend over time. We'll keep it simple. Oh no, actually that there is the layout title. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of that. Good, and then we'll add this to the line chart, sales over time. We'll call it sales over time. Sales over time trends. There we go. Excellent. This is okay. We can improve this further. So to be honest with you, I don't particularly like the fact that we still have on here these lines, background lines, grid lines. So we'll take those off. Okay, so I'm going to remove the grid line spacing, make it a little bit clearer too. Okay, perfect. Now you could argue that this is okay in the sense that it tells us what we want to know. It gives us a nice comparison between different categories, but we can make this a little bit cleaner. So now we're going to focus on the actual UI, and this is where buttons really comes in handy. So what I'm going to do, if we go back into edit sheet, we go to charts here, and we're going to add, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this chart, let's tidy this up a little bit. I'm going to add some buttons to my container. So all I'm going to do, add here, search for button. Cool, and we need 2 buttons. What we have there. So we're going to start with the first one. So first and foremost with this button, if we go into appearance, take off the title, we don't need that. Now I generally like to know exactly what I'm working with. So on the right hand side here, you can see we've got buttons, but I don't know which each button relates to. So we're going to change this label. We're going to call the first one sports button. So I know that this button refers to the sports category when we use it, and I'm going to change this label to electronics. We also need to change the labels as well. So to actually change the labels, because at the moment this is still showing the word button and we don't want that. So if we go back into edit properties, you can see here now under the general category, there's another label called button. This is where Qlik can be quite confusing. And we're just going to call this, we're going to change this to sports sales. Okay, good. And then you can see now this button changes, and it's probably a good time actually to make this smaller. So we're going to put this, okay, cool. So let's call this sports sales. And like I said before, the first label, electronics button, it just makes it easier for the developer to know exactly what they're working with, so that when you click on a button, you can see that it highlights around the correct tab. Same with electronics. Now we can see it's electronics button. But then you actually have to go into edit properties. We don't want this Qlik to add title, so we take that away. And in the general, under general tab, there's another labels button, and this is the one that affects the title. So here we're going to put electronics button. Awesome. And what I like to do is to make sure that they're the same in terms of their width and their height. I'm going to put one over the other so that I know that they are exactly the same, so the buttons are not weird. There's a bit of a space there, so I'm just going to eyeball this. I want a little bit of a gap, but not too much of a gap. Okay, so we're getting there. So why do I have these buttons? Well, I'm going to show you guys. Essentially what I need now is to create some variables. Now, I already have a variable here called var electric. In fact, I'm going to start with this and assign it to my electronics button. So we have to assign a value to our button. We have to give it a command. So if we go into edit properties, and we've got actions and navigations here. So what we want to do is add action, and there's lots of different things that your button can do. But in this case, we want it to select a variable value. My variable is already established. I've already created my variable called var electric, and that variable value is going to be 0. Okay, and we're going to do exactly the same thing now and create a variable for sports sales, but I'm going to talk you guys through that part. So once again, if we go into editing, we go to the bottom left hand corner here, and you can see there that there's this tab just under custom objects called variable. We're going to create a variable very similar to what I have here. If you click on create new in the top right hand corner, give your variable a name. So in this case, I'm going to give it the name var, let's say, sports. The description says that you can describe a little bit about this variable. You can also assign your variable tags. But the definition here, this is where you give your, if you like, your variable an original value. So I'm just going to put in here, you could put, sometimes I leave it blank, I just put 2 string marks, but in this case, I'm going to assign it the value 0. So at the moment, I have 2 variables, one called var sport, one called var electric, and they currently in their default state have the value 0. Okay, great. Now what we also need to do with this, so what I want is essentially for my buttons to change color based on when they're selected. So once the user presses that button, they know that it's highlighted. So how do I do that? Okay, so if we go to, again, into editor properties, if we go all the way down to appearance, if we go to styling, click charts, and then we've got here background options. So essentially this is saying the color that you can see at the moment is this turquoise color, but I'm going to change this by using an expression. So what I'm going to do in this expression is essentially say, when the button is selected, I want this button to turn green. When this button is not selected, I want it to go back to its original state, which I'm going to choose like a navy blue, so that you know that this button is now not selected. Okay? Okay, so as you can see there, I changed my background options, how I wish to color it by expression. And again, I've already got some pre-made expressions which I'll talk you through, but I'm just gonna ever so slightly tweak them. So what this is saying is that if, and this is my condition, so what I'm gonna say now is gonna change this to say, if my variable, and you can see it comes up with all my different variable options, if var electric equals 0, then what we have here is the hex color. So you can find the hex color using a website such as Color Picker, which allows you to pick different colors essentially and gives you the exact code. If my variable is 0, so I want it to be dark green. However, if my variable is not 0, so for example, if my value is 1, then I want it to be dark blue. And you're going to see how this works now. Okay, cool. So at the moment, my button has turned green. So that tells you that my current value is 0. But what I need to do is I need to go back into this button and do a little bit more work here. So in terms of the actions there, remember originally I gave it a value of 0, but we're going to change this now so it actually the value of the button will change depending on whether it is a 0 or a 1. Okay, so we're going to very much again use an expression, a very simple expression using conditional values. So again, I'm going to use a pre-functioned, I already created this variable expression. So what this is saying is that if the variable var electric is already 0, then assign it the value 1. But if var electric, the variable, is already the value 1, then I want it to be 0. And we can double check if this expression is correct, because in the bottom ribbon here, Qlik will always tell you if the value is correct, if your expression is right. If my expression has an error, let's just say I add in an additional comma, you should see in a minute error in my expression. There you go. And that's telling me that my expression is not right, and it will tell you why my expression is wrong. So it says there that it only takes 2 to 3 parameters, and as you can see, I've added in an additional one, which doesn't make sense. So once I take these away, you can see once again that my expression is correct. Super. Okay, now we need to do a very similar thing for sports sales. So essentially what I'm going to do is copy my expression. I'm going to go over to my sports button, and this time again I need to set up a variable. I need to give my button an action. So I want it, again, set variable value. So I want it to affect the var sports variable. So remember that I told you before, when I created this variable, in default I assigned it the value 0. But I want the button to change the value depending on whether the variable is 0 or 1 at the time. So once again, I'm going to use the expression that I previously used for the electronics button. But this time, I'm just going to change the variable to sport, and it will work in exactly the same format. But there's still some work that I need to do. Once again, I want it to change color based on if the user has selected it. I want to basically make it user friendly. So if I go back into, once again, onto my electronics button, if I take the background color expression, I'm simply going to use this once again in the sports sales button. So we go to sports button, edit properties, under presentation, we click on styling, we go to chart. The way I want this button to color is not based on single color, which you can just choose by yourself. So I could just use this to change the color to, as you can see, to something else, right? But I don't want that. I'm going to go into, I want to change it based on the expression, and I'm going to use exactly the same expression again, same thing, but change my variable now, because remember we're in sports. So just to remind you, this is saying if my variable var sports is 0, then I would like this button to turn green. If my variable is not 0, so if it is 1, then I want it to turn blue. Excellent. And as you can see at the moment, both of these variables are 0. I know that because they're turning green. And when I click them, as you can see, now that the variable value is 1, it goes to a dark blue. Same for sports sales. But I need to really, the final touch now is to add this to my graph. So I told you guys at the beginning there that I was using a layout container, and there was a reason for that, and you'll see now. If we go into line chart, I go into edit properties, I go into my data. So remember, dimensions is how we want to view this information ourselves. And then what our measures are. So we've got our average sales, which applies to all of the product categories. Then I've got specific sales, but these are total sales per month, total electronic sales, total sports sales. So let's say electronic sales now, okay? If I scroll down, you can see here that it has a show measure if. So this is a show condition for my buttons. So what I want to say here essentially is, okay, so basically what I want to do is when the individual selects the electronic button, when it goes green, I want this electronic sales to appear on a graph. But when the individual deselects the electronics button, I want the electronic sales to disappear. So essentially what I'm doing here is giving the user the ability to analyze sales trends over time by exactly the categories that they want to see. Okay, so if I go back into editing now, we scroll down to where I said the show measure if. We click on the expression button, and again I'm going to paste the formula. Basically, if my variable equals 0, so that means show me electronic sales. If it doesn't, then don't show me it. We're going to do the same for sports sales. So all I'm going to do is go to show measure if. I'm essentially just going to copy and paste the same formula, but this time, because we want it to be affected by our sports button, we're going to use the var sports variable. And at the moment, neither of these are, you can see that both of them have disappeared. So what we're basically saying at the moment is that if you want to analyze, if you want to compare our average sales per month to a specific product, you have the option to do so. So if we look now, voila, there we can see, wow, maybe I just want to compare my average sales per month to electronic sales. Maybe actually I want to also compare my average sales per month to my sports sales, my total sports sales. And we can do that. Maybe actually I just want to compare my sports sales in comparison to my average sales. We're giving the user, we're using buttons to affect the UI. We're giving the user the ability to affect the insights that they can see. And there's you have it. That's how you can essentially do your line charts over time and make it a lot sharper. So I'm just going to recap essentially what we did here. So first and foremost, I'll go into edit sheet, I added a layout container. Okay, I added a layout container which is in custom objects. After I added a layout container, I then added in my line chart. Once I had my line chart, we essentially then built it out by default. So my dimension was by month. I then the different measures I want to look at. In order to get the specific sales categories or specific products, I had to use set analysis. And set analysis essentially refers to filtering our data, like what you would do on Excel or using a where clause on SQL. So this there, the set analysis, the first part tells you what field that we want to filter and the specific information that we're looking for to filter by, and then how we wish to see it. Okay. We then created some buttons, and in order for my buttons to work, I created some variables here, as you can see, var sports and var electric. We then had to assign my buttons values, okay, because unless we did that, then the buttons wouldn't work. And in order to increase the aesthetics, we then assigned my buttons colors, so that when the user knows when the button is selected, it will turn to green, and when it's not, it will turn to dark blue. And there you go, guys. There's a really simple but effective chart that you can use on how you can use line charts to look at sales trends over time, but you can compare your specific product to the rest of your actual portfolio. I hope this, guys, helps. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot more Qlik tutorials. Until next time. Cheers, guys.